Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Brandon Curry All Access, guys. Now, I told you a while back I was going to do a Q&A, and I decided, since I'm in the US, I got in Las Vegas last night, flew in, went straight to the grocery store and did my grocery shopping, came back, unpacked, got settled in and took some rest. And I'm up this morning. I didn't hold really any water or anything from the flight. Our first flight was 5.5 hours from Kuwait to London, and then it was like 10 hours from London to the US. And I ended up, when I got up this morning, I was a pound lighter than the previous morning before I left Kuwait. So everything was looking sharp. I took a look at myself, did some posing, and still pretty crisp. Maybe slightly flat because my abdominals kind of didn't show as much detail, which shows me that I'm probably a little flat, but I was pretty dry this morning. So far so good. I'm happy so far with the way things are settling in so far. And I just finished cooking my next meal. So after this, I will be eating, and then we're headed to the gym, get some training and taking a look. But like I said, thank you for my subscribers. Like I said, I'm going to go tackle some of these questions that I've been given in my comments. So whenever you guys want to know anything in particular, just leave questions in the comments, and I'll take some time to go through, see what needs to be answered or didn't have to be answered before, and I will answer those questions. First, we're going to start out with a question that I saw somebody ask me: why no deadlifts? Why do I not deadlift in any of my videos? Now, I will be honest with you. Deadlift was one of my favorite exercises for a long time, and I was obsessed with it. But it got in the way of my training. I was a very good deadlifter, and I would try to deadlift twice a week if I could, and it would typically beat my nervous system up so much that it would affect my other parts of my training. And there were some areas that I really needed to be focused on and worked that wasn't able to get the work done because I was too focused on deadlift. I was beating myself up too much with deadlift. And as a bodybuilder, I had to get out of the performance aspect and realize if I wanted to improve my physique, then I had to choose exercises and go about my training in a way to actually improve my physique. And some of the ego lifts, like deadlift in general, I may have to put them on the back burner to make the progress. Now, I never had a problem really developing the back. Once I figured it out, got the connection, I never really had a problem. And I will tell you this, training back, especially upper back, mid back, not necessarily lower back, but training back in general with the deadlift takes technique. And it really doesn't look the same as a standard deadlift. So just because you're deadlifting doesn't mean it's going to build a thick back, unless you know how to use the proper technique. So if I do use the deadlift, I typically don't deadlift from the floor. I typically deadlift from below the knee. But I'm using a special technique that you may have seen in some videos I did last year for back, like when I did deadlift in the Smith machine. I can do them free as well, to where I'm actually getting a thoracic roll, actually using a deadlift to attack my back, not just to lift heavy weight. So since deadlift is not a specific exercise for a specific developing body part for most people, it does not really require it in my arsenal when it comes to training. It's just the overall lift to build overall muscle and build overall strength. But as a bodybuilder at my level, I just don't need that at this point. I need to focus on particular areas. As a beginner, in development, you can definitely benefit from the deadlift because you need that overall thickness, overall strength. You need that. You don't need to attack particular areas specifically. But for me, I'm at a point in my career to where I don't need it. Now, maybe in the off season, I'll get back to doing some deadlifts. I use them in a specialty way, make them harder so I don't want to lift so heavy, and I may use them to attack certain body parts, particularly, so I'll modify them a little bit. But right now, there's no need. I got too much equipment in Oxygen Gym to be worrying about loading plates onto a bar on the floor and picking it up and putting it down. It's just not specific to my needs at this point. Okay, everybody, some people tend to comment about this lump in my arm. I have, I don't know if you see it. It's right here. This is fat, guys. The fat deposit. I got that way back when, I don't know how, but it's like a little lump in there, and it's like a little fat, and it gets bigger, and then it gets smaller. Like if I get leaner, it's kind of small right now. Sorry about that, because I'm getting ready for a show, so it's getting smaller. So I got a lump. This lump is just a fat deposit. I thought about getting it taken out, but I haven't gotten it taken out. It's not that distracting, but that's all it is. It's just a little fat deposit. Let's see. Oxygen Gym. Everybody asks me where Oxygen Gym is. You don't know where Oxygen Gym is yet. That's very, very interesting. Oxygen Gym is actually in Kuwait. Okay? It's in the Middle East. It's in Kuwait. They do want to have one in Abu Dhabi, and they will be opening one in Saudi Arabia, but the majority of the Oxygen Gyms right now are in Kuwait. I train in the one you see in my videos is in Jabriya in Kuwait. So it's my coach. I don't know what he wants. We training at 12, but he's messaging me now. I know when we're training. So I'll get back to him after this. Rep ranges and training to failure. Now, typically I don't count. We train pretty high reps. And I typically don't go to failure every set, especially if I'm into the initial sets. I will go by feel and I take my muscle to exhaustion, but if I know I'm gonna go heavier, then I will wait to those heavier sets to push myself all the way to failure on most exercises, most. Now, depending on the exercise, the more compound, the more technical the exercise, the less likely I'm gonna go to failure in those previous sets. But I'm training something like biceps, single joint movement, it's easy to go to failure almost every set without taxing your system or your nervous system too much, because you're going to recover fast from those movements. Same thing for like a stiff arm pull down. Those kind of exercises you can go to failure every set. Now certainly you wouldn't go to failure every set for a leg press. You'd wait till you get to your load up pretty heavy. Same thing goes for a squat. So some exercises require that you don't go to failure on every set if you want to get the most out of the exercise. And some exercises you can take to failure because they're a lot lower intensity, more isolation going on, and they're not going to tax you as much to go to failure. So as far as rep range, man, 20s, 25s, 30s, up to 50 on legs, you know. Typically don't go below 10 reps ever. I rarely go below 12, to be honest. So, but I really don't focus on counting. The magic is not in the reps. The magic is how you work and exercise, how you're targeting the muscle, how it's fatiguing, and then you eventually push it there to that mechanical failure. But you don't have to go to failure to get results. You don't. Depending on your training frequency has a lot to do with how much intensity you use per exercise. If you train things 2-3 times a week, then you can preserve yourself from going to failure every session, because it's not really going to benefit you that much, because you're getting overall volume, and those training sessions may run into each other if you're really going to failure on every set. So depending on your training style, depending on your training frequency, will depending on how you use that so-called term failure. Rest time between sets. Now rest time between sets for me is just whenever I catch my breath. So the better I'm in shape, or whenever my training partner's done, I go right back to it. So it could be 30 seconds, it could be a minute, you know. But if I'm really trying to push a big lift and try to really work some intensity and really want to push a set, then I may rest a little bit longer to let my strength build up to do that for that final set or that push if necessary. But there's no rule for me. I just kind of keep my pace, keep my rhythm. It's kind of like moving in meditation for me. So I'm just moving, I'm just going about it, I'm just feeling it. And my heart rate may be up, but if I can perform the exercise and execute it properly, and it's not my lungs or my heart just preventing me from performing those reps, I'm good to go. Pre-workout meal. Typically my pre-workout meal on a daily basis is I eat 2 meals. My second meal is typically fish and rice. So typically my pre-workout meal is pretty simple, fish and rice. So it's nothing too special about fish and rice. But if you have issues, let's say if you have issues with blood sugar and stuff like that and crashing, then you may want to add a little fat in if you're eating carbs before your workout to kind of slow those carbs into the bloodstream, kind of slow that down so you don't get that insulin response and that crash. Now, I do drink like some carbohydrates and stuff during my training, or the Gatorade, Vitargo, whatever it may be, to kind of keep my cortisol levels down, but also keeping those glycogen stores. You can also use the amino acids as well, EAAs as well. You know, BCAAs will work. EAAs, of course, are better. You can even use protein if your stomach can tolerate it. So fasted just in protein as well. So depending on what you want to do with your intra training is depending on maybe what you're going to do with your pre-training meal. Water intake, man, my water intake is just normal. When I'm drinking all day, I drink mostly water. I don't really just monitor it that much. It's not really that big of a deal for me. I just drink when I'm drinking. I always drink when I eat. I'm always drinking, so that's not really something that is a big deal for me. If my peas are getting a little dark, and I know I need to drink more, so I look for signs of maybe not drinking enough. But I'm not really focused on necessarily how much water I'm getting in a day on a regular basis. It's an afterthought. The goal of my training is to go in, to execute and target the specific muscle the way I want to target, so I can stimulate growth, and then to recover. I mean, and not get injured and play smart. So I'm basically, if I have a weakness, if I have an area or a specific goal in the gym, I'm taking an exercise, I'm using it to target that specific area. If I want to work the back completely, I'm using all those exercises to make sure I get that complete work with each particular exercise. If I'm going in and hit the legs, same thing. I'm making sure I'm targeting the muscle fully with different exercises. I'm getting the pump, I'm getting fatigued. If I'm required to go to failure, I'm taking it there. Sometimes some exercises require me to accentuate the stretch. Some exercises require me to accentuate the pump. But I know the difference, and I'm trying to create tension within the muscle. I'm trying to keep the tension on the muscle and out of the joint. That's the number one thing. So, lifting heavy is an afterthought if I'm feeling it all in the joint. The intensity is way too high. Then I have to lower it. I have to use this position to get the feeling in the muscle is what we want it. Let's see. Training on an empty stomach. Well, you can train on an empty stomach. It's totally fine. I've trained on an empty stomach. I train on an empty stomach on a regular basis. I do cardio. We do some touch-up work in the morning in the gym, abs, maybe calves, glutes, whatever it may be. And, so you can train definitely on an empty stomach. Now, if you're having an intense training session on an empty stomach, sometimes it's better to go to bed well-fed, with carbohydrates, make sure your glycogen stores are full. And otherwise, another thing you can do is use an intra-workout in the morning. As you start your training, start taking in and fueling yourself through the workout, so you don't have to be too depleted doing your training. So it can be done. I've heard it done with plenty of success. I will experiment with it more in the off season. I've done it before, just because it's more convenient. I'll train. I'll eat good over the nightly period, taking a lot of carbs at night. Glycogen stores are full in the morning. Go in, beat myself up, drinking my intra through the workout, and finish and get a big meal. So it definitely can be done. So it's no rule against it, to be honest. If it's convenient for you, you enjoy training that morning, you can get some good workouts in, go for it. I get a lot of synthol comments, and what it shows me is that whoever is making these synthol comments, they know just as much about synthol as I do. I really don't know much about synthol, so I don't. I know when it looks extreme, but I don't have an eye to tell if anybody does it or doesn't really do it, unless it's obvious. But I get these accusations of synthol. Like I say, I've never used synthol. I don't know how to use synthol. It's something I don't just necessarily feel I need to be a good bodybuilder. But if you think I use synthol, maybe that's just a compliment. The muscles are fooling around, so maybe I just take it as a compliment. So, do I think I will win? I guess you're talking about the Olympia. Of course I think I'm gonna win. This year is about timing, and so far, man, my body's responding really well. The timing this season is going really good. My prep for the Arnold is totally different than my prep for the Olympia. And that's why I love my coach. He's able to see the differences. He's able to make changes. We don't do the same thing every time. We base everything specifically on where my body's responding. So my coach, Abdullah, man, he's really been geared up and really focused on bringing me in. We've done more cardio than we ever have this prep, only because my weight has not really moved as much as it has in the past, and we've been able to maintain a lot of muscle and still get lean. And he's had me on even lower carbs than he's ever had me on any of these preps. Not to say I'm low carb, but lower than normal. And I'm just able to maintain the muscle that I need. I'm able to come in the condition that I need. So it's really been a different kind of prep. And I think I've got the package and I made the improvements enough to win it this year. The flat bench controversy. Well, if you don't know the flat bench controversy, maybe you haven't been in the gym scene long enough, because when you think of people tearing their pecs, most people tear their pecs on what exercise? Flat bench. I don't hear about many people tearing their pecs on incline bench or really any other movement. The majority of the time when anybody tears their pec, it's on flat bench. I mean, it's just the way it is. You know, you don't necessarily need flat bench to build a big chest. I will tell you that. So I don't necessarily, I don't believe in really bench pressing heavy on flat bench. Now, when I'm fatigued and I'm deep in the workout, we want to use flat bench to kind of isolate, then that's fine. To kind of hit the muscle, that's fine. I'm fatigued, I don't have to go heavy, I don't have to use a heavy load. But, I don't think flat bench is to be all to developing chest, because that's just not the way I really developed my chest. I didn't develop my chest with flat bench. And like I said, I've seen it ruin so many people's pecs over time. And I've heard of it ruining so many people's pecs. And I know so many people got, tears from doing trying to bench, because it's an ego lift. And sometimes you can focus on how much more about how much you're benching than how it's targeting the muscle. So, not that it's bad. It's not bad for all people. Some people get great benefit out of flat benching, but for me, it's just not something that I need to actually have or depend on in my workout. And I use it sparingly. And as in the videos, you probably see me guillotine press, which is a neck press. It's high on the neck, which is a modification of the bench press. Hits more upper chest than anything. So gets you a good stretch as well. So, that's pretty much why I make those comments about benching. And we talk about machines versus free weights. Machines these days are great. They add some efficiency to your training. You don't have to, the setup is a little bit different. Of course, you don't have to use stabilizers or anything, but the machines are designed to target the muscles in different ways and different varieties and different angles of different tensions and different cams, do different parts of the range of motion. And I was a hardcore performance kind of guy back in the day, and I really like to use machines. I use a lot of free weights, and that's good when you start. That's good for a base. But then you go to somewhere like Oxygen Gym, and you cannot deny the benefits of these machines. I mean, Battle goes through the special extra work to actually pick the machines out itself. And he does the research, and everything he picks for a particular reason. And I've been able to benefit from that, and especially when it comes to things like back training. I mean, developing the back that I have without machines, I don't really know how I would do it, because being able to put me in an advantage to really target some of those back muscles the way I've been able to target. So I'm pro machine. That doesn't mean I don't like free weights. I'm pro machine. You ask me in the middle of the workout, 3-4 exercises in, do I want to go over and dumbbell press? I'm like, no, put me on the machine. Why would I want to go over and dumbbell press? Why would I want to go over and dumbbell fly right now? I'm already fatigued. I can see if I was weak and I was grabbing like the 40s or the 50s, but typically when I'm dumbbell flying or something like that, I'm going up into the 100 pounds, so I got to get those big suckers off the rack. I got to put them back. I got to, worry about if I need a spot. It's just an inconvenience sometimes. And if I'm doing it fresh, maybe it's a different story. But in the middle of workout, the last thing I want to do is just deal with some big hit dumbbells, because typically I'm not working with little small dumbbells. Somebody train with me, they've been working with some small dumbbells. They can just grab the 30s, the 40s, whatever, and it's nothing. But when you start working with the heavier dumbbells, it becomes a pain. And as much as I like dumbbell movements, the heavier you are, the more awkward the lifting becomes, the more dangerous the lifting becomes. So, that's why, I like dumbbell movements, but I'm not a fan of doing them all the time. Call me lazy or whatever, call me whatever you want, but, it's just the way I choose to develop my physique. I like efficiency. I like to be able to push myself. Another thing about machines, pushing yourself to failure, pushing yourself all the way there and beyond. It's just easier to do on a machine. It's much safer. It keeps a lot of the tension out of the joints as well. So for longevity purposes, Machines are great. Everybody talks about, oh, well, the quality of muscle is different than what it was back in the day. I don't think that has anything to do with machines versus free weights. There's a lot of things back in the day guys used to do that we don't really do much these days. The modern day bodybuilding is about fullness, more fullness than it was back in the day. A lot of those guys depleted sodium and they did all kind of weird things to where they had a different look to the muscle. Bodybuilding is a little bit different today. It's not about the same concepts. I don't really think it had a lot to do with training. I think if Dorian Yates trained with all machines, he would still be grainy, he would still be hard. I don't think it has anything to do with just the way he trained or free weights. I just think that's all genetics. I think if you train, develop a muscle, it's going to look the way it's going to look. Maybe intensity can bring a little bit more thickness, a little more gnarliness to the muscle over time. But really, I think that's just muscle maturity in general. Because I've seen, I've never been one of those guys that have been known as being grainy and hard, and all of a sudden I turn 34, 35 years old, and all of a sudden I'm getting this grainy, harder looking muscle, just out of muscle maturity. So, it's some of these concepts that we had in our head, we don't have any way of proving them, but we're arguing them until we're blue in the face, like we have evidence that these are really things that are legitimate. When it's just people repeating and regurgitating the same things over and over again. So, like I said, be smart out there, guys. Like I said, I'm happy to answer your questions. I'm glad I could come in here and answer your questions. First full day here in Vegas. This is Sunday here, and the week is just starting. So, I'm really, really excited about the Olympia. Maybe I'll do some more of this before we go on and post this out there for you. But guys, thank you for the support. Thank you for keeping up with everything we've been doing. Like I said, I'm trying to come out with this victory, and I'm really, really focused right now. But I just want to stop and just thank my fans and give back while I have a little bit of free time. It's time to eat, guys. I'm out.